It was never them. It's never been the black community. We always blame anybody else but ourselves. But the call is coming from inside the house. We are the problem. White on white crime, we are the problem. We have always been the problem. So let's for once stop trying to blame somebody else and look inward and try to address the actual problems that we are the ones creating upon ourselves. Anyway, thank you so much. Have a great day.
I'm gonna let him talk.
Hi there. Well, I just want, if anybody's watching, to know that we understand that America is based on the sweat and blood of black folks. That's proof it's the basis of prosperity, but also the standard of living that we've got in the UK is turned into slavery. There's absolutely no doubt about it. We have to recognise that fact. And I don't know what else that I can say, really, but I just really utterly appalled at the way that Trump is trying to basically send America back to the days of Jim Crow. So, for example, in the last week, Trump has legislated so the government federal agencies are no longer stopped from segregating facilities. Absolutely appalling. Absolutely appalling. Now, and I want to make the point about the UK, which is I'm from London. It's the second most multicultural city in the world after Toronto. And I'm a white person, but I have a mixed race child. And I would say that London is a place that's very welcoming to everybody. But the standard of living we've got, as I said earlier on, is historically based on the profits of slavery. And we just have to recognize this as it is. And if you don't understand your history, if you don't understand other people's culture, I don't know why you're living. That's all I've got to say.
Wagwan mi family, welcome back to my YouTube commentary. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, I'm going to talk about something here, something powerful, something historic, okay? Because our ancestors foresaw what I'm going to talk about. The moment I'm speaking to you, I've seen a lot of videos of white people confessing, of white people making videos revealing their hidden secrets, revealing the hidden tactics they used against black people, and the deliberate lies they used against black people, against us Africans, all of them, from racism to manipulation to hidden history, their own voices are out here spilling the truth, okay? Now, after a number of centuries of silence, centuries of arrogance and cover-up, some white people are starting to admit what was hidden behind the curtains, okay? So today, I'm going to take you through the confessions, break down the hidden history, what they tried to erase, play you videos, and expose how racism was manufactured as a weapon, and explain why this truth-telling is happening right now. And more importantly, I just want to show how black people from Africa to the diaspora can use these confessions as tools of liberations, as evidence of what we always knew. Because what they are saying, black people already knew. So how are we going to put these confessions to action as tools of liberation? Because when one talked about Africa, how they used to exploit Africa, how the lies they knew. So we need to know, how are we going to use these admissions to work for us? Let's watch these clips first, and then we come.
Can we stop for once, at least, maybe in our nation's history, stop trying to blame white on white crime on black people? Can we stop it for once, at least, please? Like, we all knew when Charlie Kirk was killed. We knew who this was going to be. We knew who the suspect was going to be, a young white man. We knew it. And yet, some people tried to spin this to say it was something else. And now threats are being lobbied against black students at universities. Black HBCUs are being threatened to be blown up. I think 4 of them had to shut down yesterday and today because they had to deal with bomb threats. It was never them. It's never been the black community. We always blame anybody else but ourselves. But the call is coming from inside the house. We are the problem. White on white crime, we are the problem. We have always been the problem. So let's for once stop trying to blame somebody else and look inward and try to address the actual problems that we are the ones creating upon ourselves. Anyway, thank you so much. Have a great day.
White culture, if you could even call it culture, is based in racism. It was a narrative created by colonizers, like my Portuguese ancestors, in order to justify what they were doing to other people on the continent of Africa and even here in North America. And the narrative was that we white people were better than all other races. And they did so through Christianity. They took the Bible and different scripture verses, twisted it around in order to fit the narrative of colonialism and white supremacy, and also the patriarchy. And the patriarchy is white man in power. White supremacy is white man in power. Colonialism is white man in power. And Christianity, for the most part nowadays, is white man in power. There are historical references and proof where the Catholic Church actually said to enslave an African was to save their soul. The kidnapped and enslaved Africans that were here in North America were preached different scripture verses than were actually in the Bible. And that's why they weren't allowed to read. Because if they could read, then they could see that these scripture verses were incorrect and they couldn't be controlled anymore by this white God. And white people, we didn't identify as white until colonialism. We identified as Portuguese, or Latvian, or German, or Italian, or French. But then colonialism came around, and then all of a sudden we became white, and we were superior, because we were the chosen race by God, and the scripture verses proved it. And we had to go into other people's lands and preach the gospel, when really it was all a ruse. It was all an excuse to go in and rape and pillage the land and the people and the cultures. So when I say that white culture is based in racism, it's based in racism. Christianity was the Trojan horse of white supremacy and colonialism. And Western Christianity, as we know today, is still based within superiority. All Christians think that they're better than everybody else. I grew up in it. I'm very familiar with the culture. And it's part of the problem. There's a reason why most of Trump's supporters are Christians. It's because they don't even realize that the conditioning of colonialism and Christianity and the patriarchy is so deeply embedded within them and their identity that they don't even see the truth. Christianity is based in superiority, in white superiority, in white culture, which is all based in racism.
When white people see my posts about racism in America, frequently they say, "I didn't know." When black people see these comments, they say, "We already know. There is no way you didn't know. Don't pretend you didn't." This disconnect is really hard to explain, and I've been trying to understand it myself. I'm going to be digging into this really deep because I think it's so important. It's not that we're just oblivious white people. It's that we've been groomed to be oblivious white people. People point out that it's not like this stuff is locked in some vault somewhere. It's available. You can see it. And that's true. But we were trained not to ask questions. We were trained not to look for it. And I see it in my family. I see it in my circle of friends, even some of my friends that are pretty progressive. We have this ingrained training to not ask too many questions. We were taught to trust authority figures, teachers, ministers, police officers, politicians, the anchor guy on the evening news. We believed them because we were groomed from childhood to believe that they were trustworthy. We were not taught that the system itself, the system they were part of, was designed to protect itself first. And frankly, it felt good just to trust them. It's like you had this permanent mommy and daddy figure. It made life feel safe. The gaps in white knowledge were filled in with lies. We were told that poor people were lazy, that's why they're poor. That crime existed in black neighborhoods because they were black neighborhoods. that broken families cause poverty. These ideas were not questioned. They were treated as common sense. And we were started with our grooming as infants, as little tiny babies, as little bitty kids that are impressionable and just forming our ideas about the world. So that was our social foundation. We were told that Black people can't keep their marriages together. I was even told that the reason they couldn't keep their marriages together was because of how they were treated during slavery. So out of one side of their mouth, they'd say, wasn't that horrible that families were split up during slavery? But now that has just become part of who they are. And so it's their fault. I don't know, it didn't make sense to me either. We also were not told that welfare benefits were not available if there was a man in the house, a Black woman working 2 jobs who still needed support to raise her children, could not have a husband or partner living in the house with her. And of course we were taught that that was their fault because they couldn't keep their marriages together. As we were growing up and we started to repeat these beliefs, we were seen as respectful and well-adjusted. I don't know, are you getting pissed off? I'm getting pissed off just going through this again. We were guided by the TV news and movies and TV shows to care when white people suffered and to disconnect from the pain of other people. We were taught to feel patriotic about our country without questioning whether they were being truthful with us about why we should feel such patriotism. When we asked those white authority figures that we were taught to trust, we were lied to. Now, when Black people give us honest answers, we don't fully trust them. It's not about ignorance, it's about conditioning. My education is in behavior analysis, and that's how that works. You just expose someone to a social system that supports a certain line of thinking, and you fall for it, especially if you are started out as a young kid being taught all that stuff. And that's what happens to all of us. We were taught that silence is polite and that truth about society is rude or inappropriate. And as a girl that went to a fundamentalist Christian church, that was even more so. You don't ask questions that are going to make people uncomfortable. But that comfort, you see, it kept us obedient. It kept us from asking too many questions. It kept us from wanting to do anything about it because we didn't fully understand that there was something that needed to be done. We were used to preserve a system that depended on our own silence. It kept us from befriending Black people. It kept us from knowing what the hell we thought we knew about those people. So when white people say, I didn't know about any of this, understand what that really means. We were trained not to look. We were trained to believe the stories that we were told by the authority figures. We were shaped by a system that used your trust against you. We were trained to look away. And now we have a choice. White people, we need to get angry about being kept in the dark all these years so that together with our Black neighbors and neighbors of all races, we can break down this oppressive system that has brought us here to the point of fascism. Check the caption for some documentaries to help you get started learning. We need to really get curious.
You want to know why white people hate every single culture? It's for many reasons. It's not just because of one reason. And one of them is most cultures, like the Hispanics, the indigenous people, the Asians, they don't need money to be happy. Where white people need money to be happy all the time. White people don't like other cultures because it shows the shame inside of them that they never really created anything in this world other than trauma and drama. Drama. Because every culture, the Asians, the Hispanics, the indigenous people, all have done something to make this world what it is today not really whites. I mean, look at the cars we have now in America. White people cars, because they got the blueprint from the indigenous people and they got rid of them. So now we got all the cars now that all look the same now. It's all generic white people shit. Like it's like I have a Jeep right now, and I could easily get a Kia and it's cheaper and it looks better than the Jeep. Like they all look the same. That's why I think it's hilarious how people want to get like Range Rovers and all this other bullshit just to look cool outside. And it's just like all the fucking cars look the same. Because white people, it's literally white people written all over it. Let's make all the cars look the same because we got the blueprint now. Anyone's gonna buy it now, which is true. Everyone keeps buying these bullshit cars. By the way, the indigenous people made 10 times better, because otherwise we'd be driving box cars with no blinkers on them. The Asian community amped up even more. So it's just like, what have white people ever do? And that's why they hate other cultures, because they know deep down they just never did anything. The other cultures come over here and they strut and they do better than them. That's why they want to deport them all the time. Because they have that shame of being useless and worthless. About the Asians, about the indigenous people, about the Hispanics, it would be looking like the Family Odd Parents if everything looks gray. I mean, it already kind of looks like that. I mean, look at like McDonald's now. It's all gray. There's no color to it anymore. Everything's fucking gray. We're living in the Family Odd Parents of the gray. Everything's gray. It's just, everyone's just as the same, looks the same. It's white people culture type shit. It's just generic. So it's a lot of things that why they don't like other cultures, because our cultures don't need wealth to be happy. Most cultures created most of everything in this world. That's why the world's running the way it is today. This is what white people just did. Money, buy, sell. That's it. Nothing unique about white people. And I'm white, and I can admit it. That's why they have no true friendships, the white community. That's why they have the hierarchy. And they always like to stab each other. I mean, every culture does it, but it's mostly the white people, because they created this. They want to be a superior. They think they're alpha or something, whatever the fucking label they love to give themselves. And a lot of people don't fall for their shit, knowing that they're not all alpha, they're this or that. They're just human being that thinks money and status is the way to go. So they don't have true friendships. It's always talking shit about each other. Even the females, they're always doing something behind each other's backs. And in my opinion, I think mostly the lonely epidemic it's in the white community more than any other culture. That's just my opinion. You mostly see white people talk about it more than anybody else. So I don't. Just saying, white people don't have culture or community.
Welcome back. Now, I can't lie. I know you have come through these videos because when you scroll online, you see something like you never expected. Sometimes I see comments and I'm like, wow, okay, a white man talking about this, a white lady talking about this, because I see white people, white teachers, historians, former politicians, and even ordinary folks. They're going on camera right now. And what they are saying is confirming the history. It's confirming to us that we have been right all along. It's confirming what our ancestors have been saying for long. Okay? Now, they are talking about the wealth they have today. They are telling us the truth. We ain't rich. But it was created like this. Okay? Black people have always known that one. Some of them are even crying while confessing. Some of them look shaken. Some of them, they feel guilty. They feel broken, And I'll say this. This is very important moment to pause on as black people. Because for these centuries, whenever black people were speaking, or whenever black people spoke up about injustice, whenever we told the truth about colonization, slavery, Jim Crow, apartheid, systematic racism, they told us we are playing victims. They told us we were imagining things. They told us to move on. They told us slavery was long time ago. This is important to pause on, okay? Because for centuries, whenever black people spoke about injustice, when we spoke about Jim Crow, when we spoke about apartheid, systematic racism, they were saying that black people are playing victim. Okay? They told us that we are imagining things. They told us to move on, that racism they told us that slavery happened long time ago. Now, the way we were dismissed, the way black people were dismissed when they complained, the very people who benefited from it, the very ones who inherited wealth and privilege from it, are going on and on, recording videos and saying, yeah, it was true. It was deliberate. It was evil. So that's what is happening, okay? The lie is crumbling. The cover-up is lifting. And this should remind every black person of something powerful, that truth always outlives lies. Our ancestors had the truth in their bones. Even when the oppressor tried to erase it from the books, they carved the truth into songs, into names, into dances, into rituals. And when this day comes, the conversions finally start, and we will recognize it. Now, that's what our ancestors said. Let me talk about the hidden history they buried, because when you go to the history, when you talk about hidden history, we are not just talking about smaller missions, because, we are talking about the deliberate erasure of entire civilization, the rewritten of textbooks, the glorification of colonizer, and the demonization of black people. White people are admitting now that history itself was rewritten and make Africa look like it was always poor. History was written to make Africa look like it was always struggling, always needing of saving. They created movies, books, and lecturers that portrayed Africa as a dark continent, as a primitive land, as waiting to be civilized. But the truth, which they knew, was the opposite. A lot of history has been erased. Empires, trade routes, Africa had kingdoms, scholars, library, and advanced sciences like Songhai, Kush, Nubia, Great Zimbabwe, Kemet. All this thriving civilization with architecture that still stands, knowledge that still inspires, and wealth that dwarfed much of Europe at that time, it was erased. This is not what they taught us in schools, okay? They taught us that Africa had no history until slavery, okay? It was all of propaganda. And now some white historians are finally saying it, that we erased Africa's greatness from the record to justice, or to justify colonization, that we pretended we discovered what Africans had already mastered. Yeah, they are confessing that the narrative of discovery, Columbus discovering America, Europeans discovering mathematics, science, it was all a lie. So they did not discover, they stole, they rebranded, and they erased. So think about this. Even in America itself, how often do they talk about black inventors? No. How often do they admit that traffic lights, the gas marks, the blood bank, and countless agriculture tools and elements were discovered by black people? No. The reality is black people were never inferior. Black people had a lot of strength. Black people had a lot of knowledge. But because they wanted to control this narrative, and they knew very well that black people are superior, they came up with the ideas to make black people think they are not worth it, So when these white confessions happen, it's not just entertainment, but it is unveiling or unraveling a long campaign of lies. Now, racism was manufactured. Yes, because some of the most chilling confession I have come across are some white people openly saying they built it on purpose. It was designed. Racism was never natural, okay? Babies don't hate each other. Children don't look at each other's skin color as a reason to harm. Racism was engineered. It was strategic divide, to justify slavery, to create differences that put whiteness at the top and blackness at the bottom. But scholars are now admitting that race itself, the categories we think of today, was created in law and policy, especially in colonial America. Okay? They deliberately wrote it into law that white people will have rights denied to black people, okay? They deliberately created the narrative of black inferiority to keep poor white from uniting with enslaved Africans. And guess what? It worked. Yes, it worked for centuries, but the cracks are now here. They're now showing up, because when white people themselves start admitting that racism was a tool, that they benefited from it, that they designed it, and the mask is off. The mask is off. And what I know, they're just telling us what black people have already knew it, okay? But the question is, what do we do with these confessions as black people? That's the question we need to answer. And why are they speaking right now? Because this is the part is very, very important. Why are white people suddenly talking about this after all these centuries of silence? Okay? One, it's because they are seeing their empire shaking, Western dominance is collapsing, economies are falling, political systems are unstable, and black people in Africa and the diaspora are rising. We are more educated, more connected, and more economically powerful and more confident than ever before. So white people, they are seeing the writing on the walls. They know that if they don't confess right now, the truth will come out anyway, okay? And they will look even worse for hiding it. And some are confessing out of guilty, hoping to cleanse themselves. Some are confessing out of fear, hoping to build bridges, before the balance of power shifts completely, okay? And some are confessing because they genuinely can't hold the lies anymore. But regardless of that motive, the result is the same. Their words are proof. Their voices are evidence. And when the oppressed speak truth, it is powerful, okay? But when the oppressor confirms it, it shakes the world. You understand that? So, I'll say this. I believe the confessions are not just enough because we need more. Okay? Those confessions we are seeing online, yes, are powerful, but are they enough? Are they enough? Because when a white person says, yes, racism was real, it does not heal the wounds. A white teacher admitting, yes, we erased African history, does not restore the stolen legacy. Okay? Words alone undo centuries of theft, trauma, and discussions or distractions. No, it cannot undo that. Okay? So this is where we as black people must be careful, because the system will try to pacify us with confessions. They will say, we admitted it, or we apologized, let's move on. But confession without restitution is manipulation, because if someone robs your house, for example, and then years later comes to you saying that, yes, I robbed you, but never returns your belongings, never returned your, never pays you back, what's that? That's not confession. It is performance. It is self-healing at your own expense. So when we watch these white people finally admitting their crimes, admitting this to black people, we must demand the next step. What is the next step? What are you doing as my brother? Reparations. That's where reparations comes in. Land, bring your land back. The lands that belong to the ancestral land to black people, let them come back. Curriculum changes, economic investment in black communities, protection of black lives. Truth confession means change. It means change, not just words, okay? And here is the deep truth that our ancestors already warned us. They said one day the oppressor will admit his crimes, but don't fall for the sweet words. Judge by deeds, not apologies, okay? Because this is what I call the psychology of white confession. Because why do confession matter so much right now? It's because confession is a sign of guilty, and guilty is a sign of weakness. So the system that once stood boldly and arrogantly is now shaking it to its core. Okay? In psychology, when a liar starts confessing, it's usually because the lie is too heavy to carry, or because they know they are about to expose anyway. So that's exactly what's happening right now. White people feel the shift. They feel the ground moving. They see black excellence rising in sports, in arts, in technology, in politics, in global leadership. They see Africa connecting with the diaspora. They see white power being or losing its grip. And guilty. They are guilty because to eat him they alive, guilt begins to eat them alive. You see it on their eyes when they speak. I see the videos and I'm like, whoa, he is feeling it. And some are confessing because they just want relief. Others confessing because they want forgiveness. And others confess because they want to rewrite themselves as the good ones, before the system collapses. But I will tell you, let's be naive as black people. Why? A guilty conscience does not equal to justice, okay? So we must listen, yes, but we must also act. How? They are guilty must fuel our strategy, okay, not our sympathy. Our strategy to work more. Now, what they are finally admitting is point of our point here is that slavery was not just for labor, it was a system dehumanization. We knew that because what they are saying, black people tried about this for a long time ago. They are saying history was written. We already knew this. Racism is a system, not accident. Economic theft by built white wealth. So all of this, we knew. We already knew this truth. I come across black Americans, they are telling me that a lot of things we are talking here, it was said before, okay? Our schools, elders, leaders have shouted them for decades. Black leaders, they were fighting, the activists, they said this for decades, you know? Now, the only difference right now is that the oppressor's own children are saying it too. And once truth leaves the lips of the guilty, it can never be denied again. You know that, okay? Now, I want to honor the greatness the greatness they try to hide, because when white confessions bring up we erased history, then we must fill in the blanks with the truth. The truth is, Africa was not blank state. Africa was the origin of civilization, okay? In Kemet, the pyramids stood long before Europe ever dreams of such architecture. In Mali, Mansa Musa, wealth was so vast, it crushed economies when it traveled. In Timbuktu, libraries had knowledge that drew scholars from across the world. In Great Zimbabwe, stone cities rose with engineer brilliance. Okay, and even during colonization, black resilience shone. Haitians defeated Napoleon army, okay, and declared independence. Ethiopians defeated Italy and at Adwa, okay. Black inventions in America, or black inventors in America, created tools that changed daily life. Even while enslaved or oppressed, black people still flourished. And this was never taught to us because, as white confessors are admitting, we had to erase black excellence to maintain white superiority, okay? But here we are. The confessors prove what our ancestors whispered: the greatness of Africa cannot be erased forever. Yes, it can't be erased forever. And what I love is that these confessions, the videos are gathered across, is the white people talking is all over Europe, not just America, but Europe countries, UK, France, Germany, you know, white South Africans, they are all starting to admit their countries did, you know, because colonization was global, racism was global, and now confession is global. And even when we want that apology, may be global, reparation may want to be global, okay? Imagine as an African hearing black historian admitting the lies of colonization, African Americans hearing white professor admitting systematic racism, Caribbean people hearing the European bank admitting that the wealth of his family came from slavery. These are not isolated events. There are puzzle pieces of a one big picture. And the picture says this: the entire white system is guilty and the entire black world is rising, okay? And we must turn these confessions into power. We must, as black people, turn this confession into power. How? We have to save these videos. Save these videos, save the quotes. They are evidence, because one day they will be part of reparation cases. They'll be part of history books and part of political debates. We have to archives. We have to put them in archives. We have to educate with them. Show our children that even the oppressor admit the truth. Use these clips in classrooms, churches, communities, centers. Every confession is fuel. Use it to organize, to protest, to demand police changes. Push of restitution, push for land, wealth, resources, and structural change. Okay? At the end of the day, we have always been right as from day one. And this confession is just confirming to us as black people that, of course, they have been wrong. So we need to use this opportunity on our benefit, okay? We need to turn these confessions into power. Now, tell me what you think on the comment section about this video. Until next episode, peace out.